Okay, good evening. If you'd like to take a seat, please, thank you. I'm going to call the Plan Commission meeting to order. Tuesday, October 1st, 2019 at 6 o'clock p.m. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There's another one. I don't know if there's more. Okay.
Roll call.
Commissioner Graff.
Here.
Commissioner Oliver.
Here.
Alderman Kubaki.
Here.
Mayor Cheverati.
Here.
Commissioner Jocks.
Here.
Commissioner Buckmaster.
Absent.
Commissioner Bartlett.
Here.
Clarence Trezvitowski.
Here.
Statement of public notice.
The agenda was posted and distributed to all news media requesting notification in accordance with the open meeting laws on Friday, September 27th.
Thank you. And then we have approval of the September 3rd, 2019 minutes. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion on those minutes? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. We have consent business.
Resolution PC 056, 2019, approval of a two-lot certified survey map for Kevin Malsheen on Muskego Dam Road and Loomis Drive. Approval of building site and operations plan amendment for Vintage Grounds at South 74 West 16825 Janesville Road. Approval of a two-lot certified survey map for James and Suzanne Blixt on Loomis Drive.
And that was PC 58,
Oh, sorry.
2019. Okay.
Move to approve and gross.
Second.
Any discussion on those items? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Consent and agenda items are approved unanimously. New business for consideration. We have Resolution PC 59, 2019, approval of a building site and operation plan amendment for Bass Bay Brew House located on Oddmore Drive.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. The petition that's in front of us tonight is for some ongoing improvements at Bass Bay Brew House and Oddmore Banquet Hall. The most current improvement that they're looking to do is to add a covered pergola gazebo type structure with open sides with a galvanized metal roof over an existing newly installed bar area that's on their existing patio. You might recall in June, they came in front of us to do an outdoor seating area, which has been completed and looks great right now. And they just want to then cover a portion of this outdoor bar, which will just give an area for more clients to be outside, regardless of the weather. Staff does not see any issues with this. It would be a nice improvement, give a nice outdoor feature, and kind of extend the seasonal use of that outdoor area. Two other things we kind of noted as part of this same resolution and approval and review was that during the installation, the original plan was part gravel and part crushed gravel and part asphalt, or concrete, excuse me. During the installation, they ended up doing it all with concrete, which was not an issue as stormwater was reviewed the same. So we just kind of wanted to put that in the resolution to solidify that it was all concrete, which is probably a good long-term solution. As well as one of the things that was noted upon looking at the site was that there was an enclosed area kind of under an existing overhang that used to be just overhang over the walls. That area was recently enclosed, so we figured too that we have the applicants submit some details, so you'll see there's pictures in your packet of kind of that enclosed area. Once again, fits the motif of what they're trying to do out there, definitely matches a lot of the character that that building has and what they're trying to do there. It's mostly windows, so you see the pictures. The resolution also will solidify that that is approved, subject to building permits getting approved for that feature. So it's kind of threefold, but staff is recommending approval. I think these are some nice improvements out there.
Thanks, Adam. Are there any questions? Comments? Other than that,
It's really not an expansion of the patio area, it's just covering.
Yeah, that expansion's already done.
Okay.
You know, with approval, they're just covering that one area is the key.
anything else? It is lovely. So with that, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Is approved.
I'll abstain. Just-
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Yeah, catch me earlier so that,
Yeah.
actually, even before we, like right away when it's on is better. Thank you. Okay, Resolution PC 60, 2019, approval of a building site and operation plan amendment for Muskego School Apartments LLC on Janesville Road.
Move to approve.
Second.
Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. You did have one comment. You wanted to go through it first and then
Oh,
answer those?
yeah, you should go first, and then we can have the people come up. Yeah.
Okay. So this approval that's in front of you tonight is from Muskego School Apartments LLC. This is the group that is looking to rehab the Muskego Elementary School property that's along the Janesville Road right now. This property did receive its planned development district zoning back in December of 2018, and as a condition of that rezoning was subject to the approval of the building site and operation plan, which is in front of us tonight. That approval is specifically looking at things like building architecture, site layout, lighting, different things like that. But the zoning's already been granted. So what they're looking at doing with this, and what was approved as part of that rezoning, was that within the school building, they're going to install 22 units. 10 of those will be one-bedroom units, 12 of them will be two-bedroom units. And then they're looking to add 2 additional townhome buildings on the north part of the site, totaling 18 units. So one building will have 8 units, one building will have 10 units. Each of those units does have an unattached garage. There are also detached garages on site. Each of those townhouse buildings, or each of those townhouse units are 3 bedrooms each. So when we started to look at this, we had to look at different things like site access. So looking at site access, the way the building's orientated, the buildings kind of have a face, the townhouse buildings that face Mishi, and the garages are facing an internal private road along with all the detached garages. When it comes to the layout of the school building, that building is what it is. Nothing's really changing with that location at all. So the building where it stands today is where it's going to remain. As far as access goes to the roads, there are 2 access points proposed along Mishi Drive, and any other existing access points that are not one of those 2 that they're using will be removed and restored to their natural state. The site itself in general is proposed to have curb and gutter throughout. There are different types of curb and gutter systems, whether it's vertical face or mountable, depending upon what the curbing is adjacent to. One thing the resolution does note is that the eastern side of the driveway should include multiple curb, which the same already occurs on the western side of the driveway, so that both sides of that driveway will both have multiple curb as you approach the detached or attached garages. This will help kind of identify the driveways separately from the roadway that's internal to this development. The road that will be within this development will be private, so it will be not city maintained or city plowed or anything like that. That's how most apartments and condos are in the city. There is a network of sidewalks shown throughout the project for the internal users of this site. So they are having those, because the buildings do face the fronts on Mishi, they do have those sidewalks that connect all of them and kind of give them a front yard feel. As far as parking goes, each of the 18 townhouses will have an attached garage stall. And then 4 multi-unit detached garage structures are proposed. One having 8 stalls, 2 having 10 stalls each, and 1 having 12 stalls, for a total of 58 enclosed parking stalls. 18 attached, 40 detached. The zoning code typically looks to have 2 enclosed stalls per unit for multifamily uses along with additional guest parking. That would mean that you would need a total of 80 enclosed stalls for resident guest parking in a development like this. This development is short of that by 22 stalls without counting the guest parking. Now, when you look at the plan, though, there are 20 surface stalls that are included, which are closer to the Muskego Elementary School building portion of the site. And then also, the garages that are attached to the buildings have enough space to safely park a vehicle in front of each garage. So that means whoever owns or whoever is leasing that unit, they have 1 car in the garage, they can also have 1 car in the driveway. So it has been customary, the city does count those driveway areas as stalls when you deal with condo or multifamily units. So in looking at this, that definitely ups the parking count. When we looked at what we looked at, we kind of compared, since there is a different number of units between 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and some of them being specific to seniors, we kind of looked at what this means for total parking. So with all the parking in consideration, including the driveway stalls, brings them to 96 spaces, which equates to 2.4 stalls per unit. So this is something that does meet the minimum requirement of enclosed spaces then, even though some are enclosed, some are outdoors. The Planning Commission typically, when we deal with multifamily type complexes, has done a little bit of a hybrid with parking. If you remember, like on Mill Rose and the Parkland Town Center project, on each of those projects, there was the typical 2 enclosed and 1 outside was not always required, especially with smaller units. And the applicant is here. They may want to speak a little bit in a minute here towards the parking need, but I'll kind of finish this overall together. The applicant has some stats, I believe, based upon previous projects that are similar. You know, for example, with the 1-bedroom senior apartments, they have some data that indicates how many people actually have cars, how many don't, how many cars. And so they're basing their parking proposal on similar past projects, which we have had many other projects do in the past. And Will Rose is a perfect example of the most recent one that has done that. So that's something the Planning Commission may want to talk about if they feel there's any additional need for parking. But what's proposed is very close to what we've seen on other multifamily sites lately. As far as architecture of the building goes, the building that you'll see on the school building is remaining substantially the same. There will be cleaning and repairing done to the building, tuck pointing, things like that, a lot of cleaning. They are including the reinstallation of some formal windows that have since been covered over. They are adding a very small canopy over the back to provide some other protection as people enter and exit the building. So the school itself will remain significantly unchanged. As far as the townhouses go, they are intended to have a row house appearance. Each building will be 2 stories tall with gable roofs, mixing in some dormers to provide some breaks to the roof line. The overall height of each building is just under 26 feet, which more than meets the city's height limits. The site limit is only 30 feet to the midpoint. As far as the homes, like I said, they face Nishi Drive, which is kind of identified as the front side of each townhome, and each unit is shown having an individual entrance with a small covered porch to add some depth, and helps further that row house style type of architecture. Additional depth is shown on each entry with both first and second floors, areas that protrude a foot out from the remainder of the building. The exterior of the townhouses is proposed to have a mixture of masonry and vinyl siding. Brick veneer covers the majority of the lower level of the first floor, as well as on the street sides and the ends of the residential buildings, in addition to alternating accents of brick above some of the door features. The remainder of the building front is shown with a mixture of horizontal lap, vertical board and batten, and shaped vinyl siding in alternating patterns. So you can see that in the renderings that are provided and on the elevation drawings. They are proposing earth tone type colors. Final color selections will be provided to staff before we can issue building permits. Both the attached garages are proposed, both of the attached garages are proposed with bands of masonry to match the first-floor residential and the same type of lap siding with the shading gables. As far as masonry goes, the city likes to typically see 50% masonry on commercial or multifamily projects. This project averages 54% total per building, and the actual percentages vary between 50 and 60% when you look at them independently, but averages of 54. So they do meet the minimum design guide requirement that we look to see for masonry. As far as the detached garages go, they do have a band of masonry on the front, which matches the residential buildings, and horizontal lap siding and shake covering the gables. The back sides of the garages are a little bit plain and lack a little bit more design or character. This is especially a concern for the back space in Nishi Drive. Due to these long walls with no notable features or lack of character or design, the back sides of the detached garages should have some dormers or other features added to provide more character to those buildings. They do need to have four-sided architecture, which they currently lack. This is also a concern for the detached garages on the west side of the site, since the existing tree buffer that is there is mostly deciduous trees, which will lose their leaves a good portion of the winter months. So the resolution is drafted that they do need to have some additional, design to the back of those buildings. As far as lighting goes, they do have lighting proposals submitted. Everything they've shown for lighting so far meets the city specs relating to height of poles, design of fixtures, cutoff, and so on. They are proposing right now one monument sign towards Jamesville Road. That sign does need formal signage approval, but conceptually does appear to meet the city's requirements. As far as trash enclosures, they are showing 2 trash enclosures on the site where these enclosures will house, the dumpster or recycling enclosure bins that are out there, No details have been really provided relating to mechanical devices, whether it's HVAC units, transformers, etc., other than they do show some basic ground-mounted pads for these future features. Because of this, the city is concerned typically with how the mechanicals look, whether it's on the school building, around the school building, or around the townhomes. So we are noting that before permits can be approved, we will want to see that ample screening is surrounded around all mechanical, whether it's HVAC or transformer units. If they're on the ground, it will be landscaping, and if they're on the roof, it may be some kind of screen, but none of those units should be visible in the resolution drafted as such. As far as landscaping goes, there is some basic landscape plans provided. It shows a mix of trees and shrubs. Formal review is subject to city forester review before permits can be issued. There are some preliminary comments that some additional landscaping should be required in the backs of the garages to kind of give a little bit of a, soften that look up, especially since some of those trees will lose their leaves or are facing the roads. As far as utilities go, a water main extension is required by the developer as part of this, so that's something we'll work with our engineering department on. Otherwise, there are some notes in the resolution relating to that if they do any phasing here, if the buildings aren't built within 2 years of approval, they will have to come back for approval. There's some notes relating to not allowing any kind of outdoor storage, especially of any kind of junk vehicles, boats, campers, trailers, things like that. Otherwise, the resolution is drafted approval subject to those items that have been noted.
Okay, yeah, thank you. We have some people, some public comment. One. So when you come up here, please state your name and address, and then you can speak. Jack Belkey? Did I say that right?
Yep, sure did. Is this working or?
Yes.
Great. My name is Jack Belkey.
You can adjust it up if you like to, so you might, there you go.
Why don't you drop it on the floor? Okay, perfect. My name is Jack Belkey. I'm Bakeries Association. My address is S75 W17651 Harbor Circle. And I'm the president of the association. So my comments, half of the group here is from Bakeries. So we'll just give you just kind of our overall impression and just perhaps some asks, being that we'll be right next door and be neighbors of the project. So first of all, we support the project, and from that standpoint, we understand that progress needs to be made, that buildings sitting vacant needs to be developed. So that we'll put that for starters. So the one concern on the shortage of parking is that some of that overflow may end up over, and I know you're going to shut off the park side, but it doesn't mean that people won't be able to necessarily park over on that area and just walk across the street. Park is a very narrow street. It already has a lot of traffic, either from our 74 buildings, probably 150 cars, along with what else is coming up that road. So one of the asks that we have is that no parking be added to the west side of that street. We already have a number of people parking on our property, but with the way the cars are going and utility vehicles and things like that going up and down the road, we just feel that it's a safety risk moving forward. And we ask that once the project comes to completion, that be added, just so that it doesn't clog the road any further than the road size by itself is. So that's request number one. The landscaping side of it, when I looked at the project, it really doesn't, comparable to some of the other businesses in the area and with what we've done specifically, it looks to me like there is some more that could be added just from an aesthetics point of view, especially with the garages, the way they noted the position of the garages. And so, yeah, the way we looked at it is that, we've sort of, in some cases, over-landscaped on our side, but we feel it beautifies both Janesville Road and I think the surrounding businesses that are there, and it provides a nice seamless transition, and hoping that the new project does the same thing. On the lighting with the lighting, we just hope that there's a lower profile, so that there's not a lot of ambient light that either hits the neighbors across the street in the single-family dwellings and/or comes over into our project. I understand there's safety and things like that involved with that project, but that way, they did a good job on Janesville Road. We don't catch a whole lot of light in the complex, and kind of a bedroom community, so that does help the situation a little bit. As regard to the sign that they're going to put out on with the identifying the building, one of the concerns we have is how many cars are going to turn in accidentally on the Park Avenue, and then end up having to go through our complex and/or doing U-turns because it's a dead-end road. So either a sign noting that it's a dead-end road and/or having that saying that, okay, that Mishi Drive is the entrance for the project. I don't know what the name of the project is, but so let's see. And then too, we ask that park not be closed for construction during the construction period. Hopefully, it won't be. As we, other than our main entrance, that's the only other entrance out, and just again from a safety standpoint. So I believe that covers our things. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Okay, no other comments on this, correct?
Matt?
Oh, if you...
Yeah, there's a sheet on the
There's sheets,
table.
we'll give you a couple minutes to fill it out.
I can, I guess, kind of hit a couple of those items.
I should have announced that first, I apologize. I assume everybody knows that.
I didn't know. I just.
Well, there you go, wasn't me.
Adam,
Yeah.
where is that line inside?
Is it in
I
here?
believe it's pretty centrally
Yeah,
shown.
it's right
It's straight in front of the elementary school. Yeah, right now, if you go to the site now, there's a sign that's literally right in front of the school building, pretty much dead center. That's just proposing the new sign to go.
Here.
Oh, okay, I see it.
You know,
Right, I see it.
If we, we normally don't get overzealous on sign placement, as that's something we usually leave up to applicants, but, we could encourage or ask them, the applicant, if they're willing to maybe move it further east, closer, we don't have too close to the intersection for vision issues, but we definitely could move it quite a bit further east if they wanted, just to kind of identify it's, the entrance is more on that side, you can do something like that. You're probably not going to do some of those arrows or the wording like enter on Mishi, because now you're just getting unnecessary wording on the sign, but the only suggestion there, we can maybe ask them to move it east. So we normally don't get too particular with signage, as that's something that's usually kind of a freedom of the applicant kind of thing, but we can definitely encourage or ask.
Okay, we'll have Mike Bodie.
Good evening. Address is S75W17657, Harbor Circle. I also live in the Bay Breeze condominiums. One of my questions about the project is, has it been determined whether it's all designated for senior housing, both the school and the townhomes?
My understanding is only the townhomes will be only the school units will be senior, and townhomes are not age restricted. There's some applicants here that can confirm that, and I'm pretty confident in that.
Okay, so it's open to the public, anybody?
The townhomes, yeah, but on by today, I believe I'm pretty confident the school is senior, so the 2 bedrooms would be senior, the 22 units there, it's the 18 standalone, that would be any age.
Okay. One of my big concerns is the traffic on Janesville Road. And the reason being is the amount of apartments and housing that's being developed on Janesville Road obviously is really mushroom. You're talking about this new project. There's a new project that's up and running on land in Janesville. There's going to be 3 apartment buildings there. There's an apartment building that's going up right now across from Country Squire restaurant. There is some senior housing that's further down as you go down towards the Janesville or the Muskego Hills Corners border, the Heritage Senior housing. And it just seems to me like, we already there's oftentimes it's difficult to get out of our complex because of the traffic on Janesville Road. I've only lived there 5 years, and I've noticed a significant difference just since we've been there. And the concern is that it's going to increase all this apartment housing. Now I see also too, the last item that's on the list is about an additional senior community in the old Test Corners school. I don't know if they're going to remodel that or tear it down or whatever, but you're talking about additional senior housing. My last question is, has there been any study done by this group on how much demographically do we need more senior housing? We got Tudor Oaks, we got that Heritage Senior Community, we've got some other ones that are available as well too. I think the housing that's being built across from Country Squire is also going to be designated as senior. You probably know that better than I do.
That was not.
Is it not? It's okay. But I'm just wondering, has there been any study done on the demographics of Muskego? Do we need more senior housing? So, those are my questions.
Okay, thank you. And we'll address them after everyone comes up. Thanks. Charlotte Kugel?
Good evening. I live right across the street of the projects that you are going to put up, and that is on corner of Midgie and Richards. We've had a number of issues at times when anything functions or anything going on. Midgie is a very narrow street. We're going to put up all these apartments, all these cars, and they're going to be parked. You cannot park vehicles on Midgie and expect traffic to get through. Ambulances, fire trucks, they cannot get through. It also doesn't completely dead end, but into a street that only one car can get through. School buses have a heck of a time getting through there. You have all the lake homes. You actually drive on people's lawns. They've driven on our lawn to get through whenever there's parking across the street. And you are going to put this huge project that everybody's going to have cars and visitors, especially 3-bedroom apartments. They're probably going to have teenagers with cars. Where are they going to park when their friends and relatives come over? In my yard again? Salentine's yard next door? All the people there, I've been there 46 years. We only have 4 homes there, and now you're going to put this large project there. 3 bedrooms? Tell me, where are they going to play? In my yard? Or across the street? Or in this dead end? And these people that live on the lakes, what are we going to do? Drive there and play there too? This needs to be considered. You're going to either have to widen that street or forbid them to park on that street at all. There cannot be any parking there. We don't park there. And you know they will, because they won't have parking. We have driveways into our houses. They will not, so they will be in front. It's a major, major problem. I'd appreciate some consideration on this. Thank you. I've been
Thank
here
you.
46 years, and I'm sorry, but this is a disaster.
Okay, thank you. Madam Keo?
Hello. So my name is Matt Keogh. I live at S74 West 17382 Lake Drive. So I've been there 14 years, not 46. I put all my 3 kids through Muskego L. I walked them all hand in hand to kindergarten. I understand why the school is closed. I get it. I have a little bit of a challenge that I face, and I think, you know, one of the things that I'd like to say first is the traffic in Muskego, the fire trucks, the cops, great when you have a need, but it's like a parade often days. It is crazy. I walk my dog every day. I work from home. It's crazy. It's like living. I lived in Chicago on off of a very major street. Chicago's here now. We are getting traffic that is beyond belief. So, having said that, because that's sort of my pet peeve. So here's my unfortunate long dissertation. The neighbors that I have, including the woman that just spoke, we're just not sure what's going on. I mean, that property is not developable in the way that you're talking about. Lake Drive is an alley. It is not a street. It does not belong in the context of a street. I've lived there for 14 years. Every single month I would call and the police would come and they'd sit at the end of the block because we'd have hundreds of cars come as people would deliver their children to the school. So I've been through this for 14 years. Cones out in the street and all the things that happen. We don't have to worry about that anymore, right? So now we're going to put in an area that's going to have, I'm trying to do the math, but basically I got to 92 parking spots or whatever. So the gentleman that spoke about the condos, that's on the left side. Don't talk about any of the people that are on the road that's there that have lived there with their backyards that are now going to look at all what you're putting in. So for me, when I look out, I get to see the two buildings that have been built, and I'll say they're beautiful, but, they're on Lannon. So when you go to leave Lake Drive onto Lannon, I don't know, I walk my dog. I can't do that too much anymore. People walk, they drive down there, it's crazy. The traffic is becoming intolerable. So one of my challenges is, how many new employees are going to have to come to the city as we continue to add these long-term, large projects? What is Muskego going to be? I don't understand why we constantly feel like building these developments that are going to put more people into the space that we've all loved. We have lots of room in this community. So having said that, that's fine, right? I mean, you do whatever you think is best. Whoever is coming in here and deciding to take over the school and put 18, if you take all the streets that come in that feed through there, there's not 18 houses. So you want 18 different community people to take 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. I don't understand it. I'm not completely clear, and nobody's mentioned it. Is this Section 8? Is this federal money that's coming in? I don't know the answer to that yet. I've heard both directions. If it is federal money, that's a whole nother deal for our community. How many employees do we have to add? You have to have people that, now I'm not going to spend long because I don't know truth, but I've heard it both ways. If it is federal money, because we're getting up on that pedestal and turning into New Berlin, the city is turning into something different than the rest of us probably want. So when you look at that, do you ask current landlords, have you talked to the people that own property that are rented in the city? Do any of them have interest in low-interest loans from the federal government? Before you add 2-3 employees, before you start dealing with all the things that come with it. If it's not happening, then I'm mistaken and I'll just move on. We voted 4-1, if I'm not mistaken, to change the zoning. And the only alderman that voted not to change the zoning is the alderman that is in that area. The detriment to the runoff on the lake, and tonight we're going to get another 3 inches. And I don't know if any of you live on the lake. I live on the lake. And so the way that we get pounded, and I have a runoff right on my property, it's fantastic. I love it. I have no problem with it. Except when you start putting in all these properties where people have cars, where people do things to cars, where there's oil management, where there's things that don't come into your vision. And now that water, after, I don't know, I'm going to say 50 years of investment by the lake community, and I'm surprised as heck nobody's here talking about this. But the runoff and the problems that are going to happen now after they bought all this land for this watershed, and now we're just going to say it's okay, lift your car, change your oil, don't do all these other things. So I have a huge concern with that because it comes to my house. Lake Drive is not a road, it's an alley. So if you're going to take eminent domain and you're going to come through that property, God bless. But now you're talking about having to run water, now you're talking power, you're talking about all these other things. Nobody mentioned that. So so I'm just gonna keep going. So last week, the lake rose 2 feet in 24 hours, and that's all runoff. So we're saying that the best idea of this space is to put those communities on Landon, and now we want to put it here, right on top of the people that live on Lake Drive, and all the people that live in your community on the other side. That runoff is coming into our lake. It doesn't matter what it looks like, smells like, or is. It runs into and goes directly into the watershed. School. We've changed the way our children go to school in Muskego. I'm not saying I believe in it, because I do not. But it's happened. That school and that park have been used for 100 years for different things. I can think of a lot of reasons not to take one of your prime properties on Janesville Road and turn it into another XYZ. I mean, how much taxes are you really going to benefit from? I don't understand what we're doing here as a community. Deciding where does the water go, right? As I said, where does the water go? It was about a year and a half ago, no, I'm going to say it was about 3 years ago, we got 10, 12, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be pontificating. We got about 10 or 12 inches in 2 days. I was so washed out. I built my house in 2005. No one gets washed out by me. We were so washed out, and there was so much damage that the city actually put a second culvert on the other side of our street. Because the little, that big of a culvert to suck in however many thousands of gallons of water a minute didn't work. So they put it over there, but it still runs out at the end of my property. So my boats are sucking in and lifting. And I'm not saying that that's anybody else's problem. But I have a problem with what we're doing. If that turns into oil and sediment and problems, you put 18 apartments on the other side of the street from the most valuable property you have in this town? Really? What are you guys doing? Why would we want to put 18 apartments, again, after the 36, across the street from people that have lived there for 46 years? What's it going to get you long term? Okay, so 58 stalls, 18, blah, 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 we get to 96, 2.4 per unit. Now, if you go to West Dallas, that is not what they do down there. If, by chance, this is a low-income loan, if this is a federally funded project, anybody want to answer that? Is it funded federally, or are we?
We don't have any of that.
Okay.
I mean, we don't get any funding for that.
Well, you're not building it.
Correct.
So there's
Oh,
no.
they-
So at
I don't
this
know what
point,
it is.
there's no federal funding
Hold
coming
on.
to the city of Muskego.
Adam, please only.
I'm sorry.
That's a question the
Not
developer
you.
can answer, because that's not something that can figure in our decisions in any form,
Yes.
as it's extremely discriminatory.
Well,
We're only being a perfect example, yeah.
If I could,
Discriminatory is one thing.
Wait, if I could just take a moment and give you, first, the history is that obviously the property is owned by Muskego Northern School
It is.
District.
I
And they put out an RFP, and my understanding is they had more than one response, and this is the one they selected. Must have been the best proposal. But anyhow, the rezoning has already happened, so that is off the table. This is a building site and operation plan. And this did come up at the rezoning, and the city attorney made it very clear that that cannot be a consideration in any
However-
shape. The federal government,
Let's just say it this way. So New Berlin was sued for $5 or $6 million because they weren't complying with federal laws. I'm not. Let's just take that for what it is. Muskego is where I live. If you are going to continue to support the development of large projects, we are going to take on federal money. There's no choice that you have. So you all know that answer. And saying how you say it, I say that's fine. Every one of you know what that threshold is. So when you do that, you add city employees, you have other people that have to come in, you have to be inspecting, you have to be going out recertification every year on every one. So my question goes back to, have you talked to any of the other landlords in this city? Do they have any interest in federal money? So it has nothing to do with being discriminatory. You're building too many large communities that are not owned. If these were condos, I get it. They're not. They're rentals. So I now have 36 plus, I don't know how many rentals around my house that's worth, I don't know, let's pretend it's worth 900 grand. So all of a sudden, I'm sitting here paying you all this money in taxes, and just like all the rest of us. And you want to dump these situations that we're now going to have to face. And we're going to have to put that many other people that live within her blocks, 2 blocks, 3 blocks. I don't understand it. I don't believe in it. I think there's better choices for the use of the property. I'm really sorry. But this has been building, and this is all not my idea. I've talked to all my neighbors, and they basically said, nobody's going to come here and talk, so I said, I'm going to come here and talk. I don't understand non-owner. Why are we spending more time in developing condos? Why would you want to put, when the city was, I don't know, 50 years ago, they tore down, and then all of a sudden this beautiful complex came in. And it's condos, it's ownership, it's people that want to support this community. And yet we are, on this community, right here, you're supporting development of non-owned apartments. Why?
would you like us to clarify?
I would.
Thank you. We can't, it's called multifamily, whether they're owned or they're rented, we have no involvement in that. We can't, I could give you an example, the condos that are anywhere in the city, at any time, they can change and they can become apartments. We have no control.
Oh, no.
Or that's another, it's by,
You have to take an apartment and you have to go in and you have to get the condo association approved and developed.
that's private.
That's happened.
It comes to you guys, you have to approve it too.
No,
No,
for an existing building.
We do
for a
not.
condo or-
Okay,
Not if it's
fair.
existing.
All right, then I give up on that. So I'm gonna say this. So when we talk about parking, the people that live on Lake Drive and then the Richards and Mishi, ever driven down there? Any of you?
down with the,
Yeah.
yes, I did today.
Okay,
I've
so
done it before, but I didn't.
if you're turning left onto Landing, and you can't see. So let's just say you're driving down, you get past my house, and there's a garage, another garage. It's an alleyway. So what I'm going to say is, shut Mishi off. Turn the cul-de-sac at the end, we already have one, of Lake Drive, and then go back this way. Because if you take eminent domain, then now all of a sudden we have a whole bunch of different issues that we're all facing. A whole bunch of money the city's spending. I have no idea why this is happening. I don't understand it. But there's a whole bunch of people that are going to be affected by it, and maybe a whole bunch is 30. The firehouse is down the road. Somebody decided a long time ago to put the firehouse close to the lake. Wow. Who would have considered that a good idea today? No one.
We need to stay on the topic of this.
I am.
Okay.
My point is, you're putting development in that is going to last for decades. Decisions that are made for decades. Muskego didn't need to have a fire station on the most valuable property in the city, but they put it there. We still don't have good, solid development on our community on Janesville Road. We get a lot of fire trucks. We do not have a lot of good choices, obviously, by this panel. So, again, I'm going to come back and I'm going to say that it is very disappointing to me. I'm worried about watershed. I'm worried about the future of the people that live in the area that you're developing this project for. Because if you live in the community that is the condos, they can figure out how to make that work, right? They can figure out how to kind of close that down. But if you come down Nishi and turn on Land, we have nothing. So the idea of you taking and making this into a long-term care facility, I get it. But why wouldn't you develop the grassland and make it into a beautiful walking path and an area for people to be, instead of putting 18 apartments that are going to cause nothing but what for the police department? Nothing for what? For the rest of us. We then have to challenge we've already seen a huge rise in crime in our area. So we've seen all these different issues. And I don't understand why this has gotten this far. I mean, I get it, but I also don't. There's a lot of property in Muskego. Why are we doing this here? Is it going to benefit the city for those people to walk out and go to Pops? Or what? Pick and Save? Where are they going that you want them to be so centrally demographic? What are you doing next to make this area so wonderful? Pioneer Drive, lights are beautiful, you did a great job. It's a great job. But there's got to be more. You can't just keep building these developments that are going to cause those of us who've made long-term investments in this community, that have built our families here, that have put our kids through schools, and they're going to say, you know what, screw it, sell. Because that's the next step. You want to put another, you already gave us those buildings on once those guys gave up that property, you took over that. And all you did was put that in there. The Sendix ditched. So all you did was put apartments. Now you're going to put more apartments. Apartments bring transient people. It's not, hey, this is not racist. It is not anything else. It's people that live for a year and move on. What do they care? What do they care about you? They don't care about you. They don't care about me. And damn well him or you. At all. So, I'm out of pages. The people that live in my 5-block area around me, they're not here, and well, some of them are. But at the end of the day, this is a decision that you're forcing more people into a community that's already stuck. The traffic is brutal. The police, the fire, they're going to be challenged. The next thing we're going to know, we're going to have to go to a permanent fire, or at least a partially permanent fire and police. Right? Police are permanent. But I mean, this is all growth. But if this is how you're going to grow our town, why? Right? The dope runs out, and I'm going to be done. But I'm just saying, 14 years, built my house here, built my life here. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to have all these people coming and going, and I can't turn left out of either street. And I live on an alley. So I don't care for this. I think it's ridiculous. I think there's way better use of this property. If somebody wants to come in and take that school and put an aging community, God bless them. But what are they going to do? They're going to park in the blacktop and you're going to give the rest 18 units? I mean, hey, 8, 9, 18, just because what? It fits? I don't get it. My name's Matt Keogh. I don't understand what you're doing. And my taxes, I pay them every single year. I pay my water bills, everything on time. So I do not understand the direction of our community. I don't want to live in Chicago. The traffic is ridiculous. Our schools are going to grow to the point where you're not going to be able to do it. You're going to have to put another $40 million referendum out there. Wow. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. A couple of things I would like to, we don't do that in these meetings. There's one thing I don't normally do, but I do want to personalize something that I actually personally take offense by saying that people that live in rented buildings do not care about me. I have dear friends, more than one, that live in the city of Muskego, and they live in some of these apartments. I also have dear friends that live in New Berlin apartment down the road in Janesville. That is a choice they made because they don't want to maintain a home anymore. So I do not, I take offense by that because they're very dear friends to me. So
Do you live at home?
I do.
Well, fair enough. And
Yeah.
not everybody lives in apartments.
Okay, we're done. The community, the public input is done, so we're going to move on. There are a few things here that need to be addressed. One is added parking. A few people mentioned that, and I guess Adam, I'm turning to you. Is there a way to address some more parking on site?
That's something the planning commission can discuss. The applicant, I would encourage if the applicant is here and you guys have any kind of
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
data
Have
to
you
give us
come
on
up?
parking, because we weren't provided any data up front as far as what typical uses are for the 1 versus 2 versus 3 bedroom. I think that would be huge. Otherwise, we have nothing to go off of if you guys aren't giving us anything else. That's, I guess, something I would start with.
What about parking on the street?
I guess that's something that's
Well, why don't we let them
that's
come
a
up?
separate
Is there
question.
anything you want to add before we get into our discussion? Or do you want us to discuss first? Developers. Is that them out there? You want us to discuss first, or do you want to come up and address anything that was said so far? You want to wait? That's fine. I want to give you the opportunity. I guess I'll move on to the other one. Is there a possibility, and I did drive Lake Drive, and it is very narrow. I don't see anybody really doing that on a regular basis because that's no shortcut by any means. But could that be addressed, like at the entrance on Mitchie to this development with, say, a left in and a right out?
One of the things the planning commission could require that would help deter people, we can't prohibit it because it's a public road, but deter people from going out of the northern driveway, which would be the most practical. If someone's going to go on that smaller street, they're going to be going from the northern driveway. The planning commission could require like a right out and, basically angle or direction, directing with curbing and such, kind of how you get in and how you get out of it so that, it's really kind of forcing you, could the city look at doing like a no left turn sign out of there? There's things the planning commission could recommend. When it relates to things that happen on the street, like signage for, don't turn left, or talking about street parking as an example, those are things, my understanding is the Public Works and Safety Committee has that final call because they happen in the public realm. Planning Commission can give a recommendation, but the Public Works and Safety Committee would have the final call on any signage, especially in a public roadways. That's their jurisdiction and their solely.
Okay. And then stormwater, I know was talked about. That's part of stormwater ordinance. It always has to be addressed. Is there any other comments? I got a list, but I don't want to.
Yeah, they're doing on-site stormwater management. That's something that's required by MMSD, who's our sewage provider, as well as DNR and City Ordinance. So there's 3 different documents out there that regulate how they handle stormwater. So that's something that a lot of time and thought has to go into the planning and review of to ensure they're meeting all of the stormwater concerns that are out there relating to not only quantity, but quality of that water that leaves that site.
In this case, I know, most of the developments of size that we see have some sort of retention pond. There's obviously no room for that if you're going to dense load like we see here.
Yeah, no, there is definitely room for it. They're proposing it. I think with the great depends on the north side of the school building. It doesn't, they don't have to be big features. I mean, big features only for very big sites. This isn't a lot of additional paving. What you have to look at is how much paving, there's a lot of paving being removed here, even though they're adding stuff. They base it on the total increase of what's happening for runoff. That's how the governing bodies, not the city, mandate that. So they are proposing, I may not be in the packet, but there is a detention basin, kind of a longer, narrow. I think they're even proposing a dry basin because the basins don't have to have water all the time. Different designs have different functionality. They are noting stormwater on site, and at this point, it's going to kind of be on the back side or north side of the school, but that is something they are accounting for on site. At the planning commission level, because We're not engineers, and we're not pretending to be, and that's not the planning commission's jurisdiction. We don't require that to be, we don't put that in the packet always, so packets don't get too big. We do have in our office available, though, some preliminary engineering site plans, and those will be reviewed. They haven't been yet, but they will be reviewed extensively by our engineering staff and consultants. But there will be additional on-site stormwater management.
So one of the things when this came forward, that there was the discussion with the playground and working with Parks Committee and preserving that. Obviously, there is a playground shown here. I haven't heard anything elaborated on what the intent is with that. Has there been any further discussion? Is the developer working with the city on this?
That was never, we can't, it's private development.
Especially if it's not part of the park and open space plan, that's not something the city could ever require.
When the zoning application came through, that was a discussion, and it was encouraged that the developer work with the city. I'm asking, did the developer ever come forward and work with the city on it?
I believe our city attorney realized it wasn't
No,
practical
yeah.
or feasible in this scenario.
Right,
So they
so
are
Ken
having
said-
features that, I mean, I'm sure they won't promote public use because it's private, but.
Yeah, that was where I was going to go next with it. So the playground that's very prominent and out in front, what is the intent with that? It almost encourages,
We don't know.
That's a private developer.
okay. So that'd be a question that I'd like the developer to address today if they can. Additionally, I noticed that the driveway that's coming off the north end of this property looks to be very, very, very close to the neighboring driveway of the resident. I believe it's a residential property on Lake Drive. That looks to be, that would that not have to shift down? Based on location, I don't think that's good. And it's not across from Richard Lane, which is obviously just a little ways further down. Are we creating some traffic issues with that alone? Obviously, a lot of things have been mentioned tonight about parking and how narrow the streets are in this location. It's an obvious concern. Any development that comes in the neighborhood has to take that into consideration. To me, right now, the way this is presented, I couldn't vote in support of this without some adjustments to the plan regarding drive access. I'd like to see more information regarding the landscaping. I definitely would like to see the parking addressed in full because we know this is an issue in this neighborhood. I'd like to see the signage moved. I'd also like to see them address the public way towards the front of the property. I see that they're connecting to the existing school building, and the existing school building that connects to the sidewalk, but these buildings don't have a direct connection to the sidewalk without walking, what appears to be walking down the street that they're creating between the garage and the apartment buildings themselves. So I think I'd like to see that in the final plans. I understand it's the site development plan.
Well, I mean, this is your only view of it,
This is
unless
our
you're
first
first.
shot.
So either, yeah, I mean, you could either, any conditions you want, you could either put them as a condition of approval in the resolution where staff could review them, if they're really black and white and clear.
Okay.
If there's things that you would want to see here again, then you would want to request that and defer it and bring it back.
Okay.
But once it is approved or not, whatever, this is the chance. But like I said, there can be deferrals, or you can make it a staff review at permitting time.
Okay, one of the other things I find odd is that the dumpster is centered between the gap on the two buildings. So if I lived in the existing house across the street, I look between the two buildings and I see a dumpster. I think the placement of that needs to be adjusted so that it's screened a little bit better from the neighbors. I understand the existing school building, they haven't brought anything forward in regard to that. I guess my question to the developer would be, have they already looked at window adjustments for when you're putting in apartment buildings or residential? You have to provide 8% and 4%, so natural light and ventilation with windows. And I would think window placement, the existing building will not most likely align with floor plans. Now perhaps it does. Has the developer addressed that? This plan doesn't bring that forward right now. I have a hard time totally accepting that there won't be some adjustments to the exterior of that building when it comes to...
They are actually reopening some former windows They've looked at that, at least that's what we've been told, and from the plans we've seen, we don't see interior layouts of it, because that's not something we should be looking at as part of this. That's not a plan commission review, what is interior layout. I'm sure the developer can speak to it, but I believe they've done that interior layout and are confident they would meet what they need to, and obviously that's the building code requirement.
There will be this is our only shot at this, there will be an architectural review on this.
This is it, they're not doing anything in the school, it's other than reopening some windows and doors.
So in regard to the existing building, I noticed that the roof pitches they all vary greatly. So like over the garages, we have some that are 312, then we jump on the building to a 612. The 312 borderline for shingles, it can be done, but it's not usually warranted when it comes to shingle manufacturers. Therefore, you have to put down EPDM membrane, waterproof them. Again, architecturally, aesthetically speaking, I'd like to see personally some consistency between roof lines on the buildings. They seem to be all over the place. I guess specifically the garages on the apartments themselves. I believe those are my main comments, with the biggest thing being the placement of the drives and the parking.
So I can comment on a couple of those driveways to the north. That driveway to the north, the ordinances most restrictive will only be 10 feet from the property line. Once it gets into the right of way or alternate right of way, then there's really not a restriction then. They can get up to the line or even go over it. So I mean, that northern driveway definitely meets the requirement. It appears to be way more than 10 feet. They actually have the 10-foot separation drawn in. I do feel that's one of those areas that when we do staff review landscaping, we would want to see quite a bit more landscaping to make sure that there's not any kind of headlight issues that could transition to the north. But that driveway on the north does meet requirements of code per the zoning ordinance. So I don't think there's anything we could really do about that. If it meets the zoning ordinance requirements.
So basically right now, that drive, even though there'll be a lot of traffic coming out of there, and we have the neighboring house driveway that close, that's okay?
Yeah, there's nothing in the ordinance talks about nothing in the ordinance talks about separation from driveway to driveway. It talks about separation from driveway to lot line.
Driveway to lot line. Okay. Now the lot line is obviously located there, so it's 15 feet.
It has to be 10 from driveway edge to lot line.
Okay.
That's the separation required when we have anything that's not single family to a single family development.
Okay. So if this was commercial, they couldn't be that close.
If it was
commercial to commercial
would be 3 feet. It only gets closer. 10 is the most restrictive, and all the other districts get even closer.
So I don't think that we ever,
The zoning ordinance.
so far we haven't approved anything where the driveway access is this close to, when we look at commercial properties, I can't think of anything that we've approved.
Most commercial properties are on a county highway, which then they control access.
Okay.
City does not limit
The city
access.
doesn't
on
have
city
any-
road.
anything
They
out
very
there.
specifically don't limit,
Oh,
on an engineering standpoint, access on city streets.
Okay. Well, that's I guess good information for the city.
Dumpster, I can definitely see concerns with the dumpster. I don't know if this makes a difference, but where that gap in the building is where they're showing a bunch of transformer pads, and as you may recall, I mentioned that we definitely have concerns with what they do with screening of those. So I envision at a minimum being extremely dense landscaping that you're never going to see between the buildings, because we're not going to allow anyone to see the transformers and the AC pads.
Yes.
So they're going to have to be screened. So that view in between, there's probably going to have some kind of screening already applied to it. Now, what that looks like with landscaping, or if they want to choose something else, that's something that's subject to that final landscape review. But I definitely agree that, that location would be more of a concern to staff if there wasn't something that already has to be screened. As far as the sidewalk goes, you're talking about, I see what you mean, that there's sidewalks kind of out of the buildings, but there's really no direct way to go from those to the sidewalks on the southern part of the site without walking through the driveways. And I agree that could be something the planning commission could require, would be some kind of sidewalk connection, whether it's through the, on the side of the driveway, behind the garage, and I'm sure that's something that we could do. There are a couple spots where you have crosswalks, so it makes sense to have some kind of connection, I would think. That's something the planning commission could amend if they wanted, for sure.
So there is a walkway that goes essentially parallel to Janesville Road.
So Janesville Road has its own, the sidewalk that's there now, in the city's realm. Once you go up to their project, there is a sidewalk that will go from kind of along the parking that's parallel to Janesville Road, that will go to the front of the school. You can see the drawing that's on the screen right now a little better. So there is a driveway, a sidewalk that will be adjacent, right where the cursor is, that goes to the school, which ties to the school's existing paving, which ties to the sidewalk. That same sidewalk then is on the west edge right there, that's highlighted right now, and you'll see that there's a crosswalk there that leads to the garage area, as well as a sidewalk that loops behind the school building. What you don't have on here is a connection that ties these sidewalks in the southern part of the site with the ones that are on the townhome. So yeah, there could be some kind of connection that happens somewhere, whether it's stems off by the playground or whatever. I mean, I think there's endless options where you put it, but that could be something that could be worked in, I would assume.
The other natural connection is missing, so if I was to walk to Pick and Save or anything like that, I'm walking basically back to the west to go.
Yeah, you walk to the front of the school.
Yeah,
go to the sidewalk.
which you know that most people are just going to continue to walk over the grass, right? So whether there's a connection there or not.
Yeah, there could be, that could be a comment of, is there another connection closer to the intersection or something?
Anything else?
I'm trying to absorb what's been said here. It looks like the playground area, if I'm not mistaken, it looks like about a 30 by 30 site. It appears to be just for the residents of the development. There's a walkway that seems to go from where the school building is. It says handicap ramp, I think it is.
Yeah, so from this, so if someone's coming from the school building, you proceed down one of the sidewalks, cross the crosswalk over the driveway, and then that sidewalk would take them to the playground area.
Or other residents could walk down that sidewalk that.
Yeah, I think that's what Jeremy's saying. If you're coming from the townhouses, you would actually have to walk in the driveway or on grass to get to that separate sidewalk section.
Okay. And the driveway issue, driveway concern is something that we don't have an ordinance against, right?
Where the driveway on the north is, no, that does meet what requirements we currently have as a minimum. It's a little further than the minimum even.
Nope.
So far, you've done a great job answering questions, so anything you can answer over here. So.
Can you speak a little closer to the microphone so that everyone...
Yeah, I was just saying, Adam, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, you've done a great job answering questions. Anything that you can answer, obviously, we're here, so.
Yeah,
The playground is intended to be private for use of the residents, their kids, visitors and whatnot. It's a place where it's placed because that's the largest green space on the property where they can play, kickball, throw football. Made most sense for that location.
Now, as far as on-site parking, there's 96 parking spots, correct?
Yeah, 98, 96,
Including the apron, which is.
Yeah, and that's something on any, and our two other larger apartment complexes don't have individual garages, so those you can't really compare an apples to apples as far as driveway parking. On any of the more recent, and I mean going back a good at least 10 plus years, that we've had condo developments, because it was more common to have a driveway, and I'll use Pelham Farms as the most recent one as an example. We always count some of those driveways as the guest stalls, because those have custom 2-car enclosed parking. That's for condo, where people demand that. Their driveway areas are what we count for guest parking. So like in Pelham Farms, they don't have separate parking areas except for by their clubhouse because the driveways are so large. Here the driveways aren't as large, but they still will at least allow one parking space well within what we consider our parking requirements for all of the attached garages. So there's not enough space in front of the detached, there is enough space in front of the attached garages. And so we did figure that into that 90-some unit count does include that parking in front of the garages that are attached to the buildings.
Okay, thank you. As far as the roof slopes, your experience on that?
Yeah, I guess you were asking about the
Roof warranties on a 312 dash
that's
roof.
they can be changed to whatever we need to. I mean, if you wanted it at 4.
Yeah, I'd like to see 412 at least be somewhat consistent. I mean, I can respect the varying heights, just the 312 is obviously pretty low pitch, and long term, it's not as durable to be, so I honest, so.
Yep. And I know the comment about the dormers being added to that Mitchie Road garage, that's not an issue. That's certainly, that would apply to the foresight architecture that we actually should have had. I was just trying to hit on a couple of other questions you had. As far as the signage goes, that can certainly move to the east. That's not an issue. Screening, the condensing units and all that, any mechanical type stuff, certainly not an issue. The dumpster, I would agree with Adam on this. I think if it's not on the west side, if you put it on the east side, then it's visible from Mitchie Road. So I don't know where else you could really kind of put that. The other one was parking. So with the seniors being oriented towards the school, our management breakdown for that is, I think Adam was talking about, a one-bedroom is typically seen as about 0.8 stalls that are being used in current developments, and then a two-bedroom is about a 1-to-1. So with there being, I think it's 10 ones and 12 twos, that comes up to be about, I think it's 20 stalls. Or excuse me, yeah, 20 stalls, and we have 22 garages for them. So, like again, Adam was saying, those surface stalls are almost acting more as visitor stalls that can be used on the development as a whole.
One question I had, and I don't know if this helps the planning commission or not, and if you explain, how do garage or parking units, is it so like people in this school building would be senior, are they assigned a stall, or is that like a purchase option, so like whether they don't want it or not, it's not going to pay anymore, so each have a stall?
Each garage is assigned the stalls aren't necessarily.
Sure, yes, correct.
So I guess also in regard to parking, so as a visitor, say someone's going to come to the townhomes and they're going to visit, where would we kind of anticipate that they park? I doubt that most people would want to park up by the playground and make that walk down.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, with their requirement to have the 2-to-1 per unit covered garage, you would think that the tenants would ideally park in both of those covered, and the driveway would be open. So now we're really at a 3-to-1 on the townhouses. I don't know, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea here, though, that the public parking isn't really, or the visitor parking rather, isn't really spread out over that development. It's going to need to be encouraged that they park in their driveway when they come to visit.
Right.
Can the city address it? Because that was a comment, obviously, from the public. Can the city address parking along Michi? Is that something that can be addressed? Has that been thought about?
I think that has to go to Public Works.
Yeah, I mean, what I would probably suggest is, I would suggest Plan Commission give a recommendation, so give us a starting point rather than say, Public Works, what do you think? Say, okay, and then there's really two questions. You have Park and you have Michi, both having their own concerns, respectively. If that's something the city, if that's something the Planning Commission wanted to recommend, I don't think it needs to be a formal amendment to the resolution. I think that can just be a staff note. But if you guys give us what the consensus of the Planning Commission would be as a recommendation, we would bring that recommendation forward to the Public Works Committee and Public Safety Committee, and that's the discussion that those elected officials would have then to decide. But that is definitely something in their jurisdiction. I think we just want to give a recommendation.
So do you want that as a motion?
Are we assuming a problem that may or may not exist? I mean, you've got about 70 feet from Michi to the buildings. It would seem to me that somebody would rather park in the back and walk 10 feet.
I would agree, and we haven't made a public connection between Michi and these buildings. So you're walking over a good length of lawn.
Yeah.
So I would agree that we're not encouraging parking out there, but you know how it is too, if you don't restrict it, do people, you know, it is the front door, the buildings are designed that way, they present to the front like they should to the street. So, first time you come there, is that where you go? You try to come to the front door, usually. So, you know, I think people are going to try to find a way to park out there and get to those front doors.
Yeah, I believe so as well, and it doesn't look apparent to me that there's we know there's not an abundance of parking, and in the event that there's an event that goes on at one end of the buildings or the other end of the buildings, it's unlikely that you're going to find out people are going to spread their parking all over the property. They're going to concentrate in one area, and because that's so logical. So it's more than logical they're going to end up on the street unless we provide it on other parts of the property as designated available parking. Not necessarily for residents, but just available for happenstance, if you will.
Yeah, visitors.
Because right now I see we're so densely loaded here that the overflow is going to go to the street. It's just going to happen. So either the property has to have it and designate it, because I don't think you can avoid people going to the street. So my recommendation would be it goes to Public Works, and they do need to look at it from a safety standpoint.
Yes, they can add
Unless
one
the
parking.
developer is going to find some other alternative.
Well, I guess, are we able to put signs up there? Or is that what you're is that what you're getting at?
Well, that would have to
Right,
go
that's
to
what I'm
Public
saying,
Works.
I don't
Yeah.
That's not your- that's not your
Because the
responsibility.
worry that, I think if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, the worry would be, is if the guest parking and drivers will be full. If everything is full because of an event or whatever it may be, are people going to try to park on the streets?
Here's a tendency. People have a lot of things that they store. Lawnmowers, bicycles, so on, so on, so on. They tend to fill their garage with that. Then they say, well, I don't have a place to park my car because my garage is full, so I park it outside. We all know that that's what happens. I did it when I lived in an apartment. I know lots of other people that did it. And I lived in Muskego, so where did I park? I parked outside on the street.
That's a point we kind of brought up, and I don't know if either of you gentlemen know the answer to this, but talking to one of their associates in the home space, I had some questions like this too. One of my questions was, what's going to prevent people from storing in their garage and then taking away that spot? My understanding, I don't know how they enforce this is just what I was told on the phone, is that they don't require that as a management company, as an owner. They don't allow people to, the garages are big enough to allow a car and storage. They don't allow them to not use it for parking. I don't know how they control that. I don't know if either of you have any idea on that, but
We're here we're representing design developers, not here. But that is a correct statement, as well as the school has been designed to have individual storage units inside the building as well.
Okay, so there's private storage units inside that building? Okay. I think I'd still I'd still like to see some of the visitor parking spread out over that site to encourage, because the way I see it is, whether we like it or not, even maybe it's just in the summer or something like that, people fill their garage up with things, and then they do park in their driveway.
Yeah.
I mean, we do it at our own homes. This isn't some shocking revelation, right?
Yeah.
So,
What could be done is we could add some additional surface parking just south of the playground. And then to give some parking on the north side, we could add parking north of the northmost detached garage on the west side of the drive up there.
That's, to me, a logical spot.
yeah, I think if those spaces are available, those would be great spaces.
You could probably fit an additional 10 to 12 stalls, maybe 13 or 14.
Because there are 12 stalls on the south end,
yeah.
right off of the first.
You lose a few because of the road, obviously, but you're probably getting at least a good feet on that side and then some maybe on the north.
Yeah, and I personally never understood why you take all your junk, put it in your garage, and take your $40,000 car and leave it outside.
Call me a order.
Just to touch a little bit on stormwater management. Whether it looks like it or not, we're actually decreasing the amount of hard surface on the property and converting a lot of that hard surface that currently is there to roof, which runoff from roof is significantly cleaner than paving surface. In addition to that, we are going above and beyond, and we will be, this is all in the stormwater management report, providing filter inserts in the catch basins that collect water off of the remaining paved surfaces that we will be paving. And then like what was mentioned, obviously we've got to meet the strict MSD requirements for runoff. So those things are all covered. I feel like we're going above and beyond what is actually required to treat the water prior to it hitting a public way. I just wanted to comment on that.
So just to reinforce that, all of your stormwater goes to the storm system out here?
Correct. Yep.
So we need a recommendation parking spots on
So
the
I have
north side.
three things noted that I think could be possible amendments, and I don't want to speak for you guys, but I can go over those again, and then the one motion maybe about the signage. The motion, we should probably just have a general motion if we do want to give, if there's consensus on Mishi parking or both being visited for some kind of parking restriction. And then for amendments, I have noted 412 pitch being consistent. I have noted about the signage, just noting that it will be moved further east to help, so we kind of know which side to go in on. And then if we wanted to add in the last one we just talked about the parking in those two spots by the playground and kind of on the north part, we could add that also if you wanted.
Okay. I'll make that motion as stated.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion to add?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a
Can
second.
we still make a?
We can just still talk. Oh, you have something else? Well, that'll
The
be,
recommendation of the right out of the.
oh yeah,
drive.
you missed that. Would you amend your motion to include that?
Can you guys clarify?
That's the,
I think just on the northern driveway, and I don't know if we have a couple spots, I think in Muskego, basically using, your curbing to kind of direct people so that it's, forcing them to turn right, if you want to say that, because of the shape of the curbing. As we don't want to encourage anyone going to that northeast, as it's
And this is only on the north.
only on the north driveway, I would say.
correct.
Sure, I'll
I
amend my
amend that,
motion
and
to include
who
that.
seconded it, and you'll second that?
I agree.
So that's included in that
Yeah.
motion now.
Yeah, and we would just want to make sure, obviously, the fire department take a look at, what we propose. And
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
Yeah,
that has to
all
go
this is
through-
subject to their
Subject to
reviewing.
that,
Yeah,
and public works, yep. Or the engineering, I should say. Is there anything else?
I do. Two questions I have, I think it's not for you, gentlemen. The board is, these are any restrictions, because it's not private property, somebody's building these apartments, unlike a condo where they have an association, and you limit, you can't have a vehicle with signage for your business. You can't have a car that's got a broken windshield or a flat tire. Are there any of those restrictions that we can put on that those types of things don't happen? And the second question is, if there's snow removal, which we know has to happen in our lovely state of Wisconsin, where does that snow go? We don't need that going across into neighboring property. If they're hiring contractors, making sure that they have a place to have snow either located and or removed from the property if there's too much snow.
So on the idea of stuff in the parking lot, if you want to call it that, that is something that I think is always a very valid concern. Let me just find the wording that we have in here to make sure they're content with it, that it wasn't going to be thought about. So the resolution says, be it further resolved that no outdoor storage other than daily driven vehicles is allowed on the apartment property outside of the garbage enclosure. So obviously stuff can be stored in the garbage enclosure, it's not more. But it says not limited to dumpsters, recycling bins, boats, trailers, campers, wrecked or junk vehicles, etc. So when we say wrecked or junk vehicles, the police department describes any vehicle that's inoperable. So a flat tire is deemed as inoperable. If it's not licensed, they consider that junk or wrecked or inoperable. So those will be all things that will be prohibited. We went as far as saying no campers, boats, and trailers, because once again, that's taking away from parking, and we don't allow those to be parked on the lawn anyway. So I believe that's covered in there. If you wanted to tweak that, we could more. Now, as far as like business on a truck, our zoning code actually allows that, as long as it's only one truck. So every vehicle could have John's Painting and Smith's, whatever, you can have any kind of, that's something that
you can have in the city as long as there's only one per unit or per property. So I don't think you'd want to regulate that because the code allows that actually. And then, I'm sorry, what's the other?
Snow removal, where is the snow?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys know that or not, if I was playing it off. I mean, one thing we could probably do, I think the only big concern is making sure it doesn't end up across Nishi, like the plowing out across. I mean, I'm sure we can make that as a condition of approval and, it'll only be an enforcement issue if it happened, but at least if it did happen, we have a leg to stand up and say, hey, you can't do that. Otherwise, there wouldn't be an inherent rule for that already, so we could add that to amendment if you wanted. Just to say these, that someone.
I guess I didn't realize they can push it out into public.
Some people push across the road.
Across the road.
Into like the other cross ditch. I don't know if they're supposed to, but it's more
I don't
commonly
think so.
done than you'd like to think. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't know exactly how public works goes are written for that, but I know it's not encouraged. Anyway.
Okay, is there anything else?
The only thing I'd say before we do a vote is just something formally want to make a motion, just so I can write it out as far as, what you would like public works and safety to look at. What you're recommending for the parking. Well,
should we first, you want that in this motion, or?
Well, I just think that could just be kind of a separate motion, not making
Yeah, then
amendments.
let's finish
Okay.
this one,
Okay.
because it's getting more.
Sure.
And I don't want to, okay, if there's nothing else on this amended motion, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that is approved. Now, a recommendation, what you would like the Public Works to look at, which is
So, I mean, yeah.
potentially no parking signs on the west side of Meiji. Am I saying that right?
I thought it was the,
Well, I know it was mentioned, the suggestion was the west side of Park.
Oh, west side of the park. And the east side of Meiji, probably.
I don't think there'd be any parking on Nishi at all.
Yeah, I think it was
None?
the extent of,
There's no parking.
Then that would
The
be
only
what
thing,
we'll
and
ask.
I only say this because we run into issue in some places, as much as no parking on both sides is nice, and I understand that it might be nice for at times, if a resident has a birthday party for their kid, and they got 3 cars even parked on the side of the road for that because the driveway's
The
full.
people that live there
The people
know.
that live there, we're not
Yeah.
gonna be allowed to park there. So, I mean, you can give a recommendation, I'm sure that will figure in the Public Works Committee though, because in streets where we do no parking on both sides, I think a few of those that we learn aren't maybe the best idea, just because it limits the people that live there in the resident, single family, just as much as anyone else. But
You can put Monday through Friday, leave Saturday and Sunday open for the parking parties.
Well, the Public Works will work that out. They'll work that out.
So we're saying on the west side of Park and nothing on Nishi is kind of where you're.
Well, what is the driveway that's across, the asphalt parking lot across from here, is that the rest, is that a rest?
That's Nico's cafe.
Yeah, so I would personally, I mean, if we want to be more specific, I think from that driveway, that general area forward would still be
North or south?
in my, going south, right? I know there's not a lot of area parked there, but that's obviously between the restaurant and the parking lot on Nishi. I don't see how that's in front of anyone's residence. I mean, I don't know how specific we need to be for them to analyze.
I mean, they're gonna be that call anyway, so I guess any recommendation they give helps, but they're gonna have that final calling in.
Well, okay, that's obviously on record, I just said it, so.
So just
Okay, so you
west
do
side
have
of
what?
Park, and what about Nishi?
Well, they're saying
Extent.
no parking or limited parking. Maybe we say it that way and they'll figure out
Okay,
what works best, right?
sure.
Okay. So we don't need a motion on that? Adam, are you good?
Yeah, I
with
don't
that?
so wants to make more, it's not amended.
It's not,
just good to
okay.
kind of put
All right,
record.
we'll just leave it at that. So that was an amendment, so now it's, we have to vote on the entire thing, so. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Is approved. And then we have PC 61, 2019. This is just conceptual, so there'll be no voting tonight. No motion is necessary either. Conceptual rezoning for discussion of proposed senior community at the former Test Corners Elementary School on Durham Place. And Adam.
Thanks, Eric. Give me 1 second, I'm gonna screen up here. Okay, so what you'll see in front of you on the screens is the rendering, and a little bit we'll hand out, but we'll show you the site plan too.
Plan commission members, you will see I gave you a revised site plan in front of you tonight. It's very, very similar to what you see in your packet, but it's just a little bit of an updated version I received today, which I'll talk about in a minute. So I just wanted to give you the updated one, but it's pretty about 95%, if not more, the same as what you see on the screen above you. So this proposal is for the other school site here in the city of Muskego that was closed with the changing of the schools for the Muskego County School District. This is just a conceptual discussion. There are no formal approvals granted as part of this. It's strictly meant to be a discussion, amongst the planning commission, amongst the applicant, to kind of see where they go with this project. So in general, what they're looking at doing is removing the existing site. So it will be starting with a blank site. And on that site, they're looking at building a new senior living complex. That's going to be consistent. It's going to be a breakdown to 20 assisted living units, 20 memory care units, which will both kind of be in one wing of the building, which is kind of on the northeast part of the site, which will kind of be 2 stories in height. And then the rest of the building is currently proposed with 82 units and the 2 other wings that are shown on the plan. Those 82 units will be independent senior living, but it is all senior restricted. So kind of is an example of kind of what they kind of call a mini continuum of care, as someone's living in the independent, and as they have further needs, they can still stay in their home building and just progress to the other part of the building where there's additional care. It is very similar, just if you guys aren't quite sure or quite understanding what this means, it's similar to the MSP Heritage Project, just if you're looking at the comparison from the levels of care that can kind of be offered. So it's good to kind of just have an idea of what we're looking at. As far as this building is concerned, they are proposing, because there's a natural terrain change to this site. So the rendering you see is kind of the front of the building, which will face Janesville Road. That portion of the building will appear as a 2-story building because of the natural grade that's on the site. And as you kind of look on the right-hand side of that rendering, or which will be the south or bottom side of the site plan, you'll notice the grade does drop, and that building then goes from a 2-story to a 3-story. And there will be underground as well as surface parking provided, and that underground parking would be accessed from the lower part of the building, which would be on the south side of the site. One big thing that, as a staff level, we thought would be a question right away that we had the applicants look into is they wanted to get access off of Janesville Road, which is understandable. My understanding is they did reach out to Waukesha County. They have had conversations, and Waukesha County preliminarily has told them they're accepting and willing to pursue the option of having that one driveway access going off of Janesville Road. One of the conditions of the county was that does not connect to Durham Place, and the concern with that was relating to cut through, is a problem that became prevalent with Bushy. So what they're doing is they're kind of having an upper parking and a lower parking is a good way to look at it. So the upper parking has access to Janesville Road. The county will have access concerns, and any kind of access restrictions will be made to the county there. But it does line up with Woodland Place across the street, which is a strong recommendation. I know that was a requirement to the county also. And then they'll have a bunch of parking up there, as well as any that's servicing with like delivery trucks will occur on that side of the property too. Actually, their site then the parking will be lower than Durham, which will kind of help screen and hide some of the stuff that's going on down there. Then as you look at the southern part of the site, you'll notice that there is another access off of Durham Place. This would be the driveway that would service the underground parking for any residents that are in the underground parking, as well as there's a smaller little additional parking lot there which could be used as overflow for staff or visitors or any other events going on. You do notice there are some kind of additional kind of faded roads or access ways that are behind that building. Those are intended to be like for fire access. The fire department preliminarily looked at this, I believe, and these were some comments. So it kind of twofold. It serves as some walking features for some of the residents, let them get out, but also could service fire if need be on that back side of the building there. It also kind of has a nice little loop which ties to like a terrace feature that they're proposing. That terrace feature is coming off what they call the town center. That's kind of the main entry area. That's where a lot of the common features of the building will be and the amenities that they offer their residents in this community here. As far as some things I think that are worth noting, height we talked about. The building itself, facing Janesville Road, height won't appear anything out of the norm and is well within the allowed zoning height limit. But as you get to the Durham side and the back side of the building, the height will be would definitely be higher. I'm not going to get into specifics right now because we're working with the applicant on kind of refining some of those numbers. Assuming they come forward for rezoning approval, which we can talk about that in a second, we'll get into a lot more high detail at that time. But from that backside of the property, it will appear more like a 3-story building because it would be 3 exposed stories, underground parking with the pitched roof. So that's something that is just, if the planning commission has any kind of comments on that, they probably want to talk about that. As far as parking goes, we definitely want to think about parking early, and the last project was a perfect example of just thinking about it often and early. There are 80 independent living units with 40 additional units of assisted living and memory care. Parking is shown, under the independent area, but I don't have an indication of how many parking stalls are under there, so that's something we'd obviously want to talk about as this goes further to make sure there is ample parking. One thing that we advise anyone doing multifamily, but especially when it's more unique, like senior assisted, is the idea of providing some calculations based on other projects, because they've done other projects, what typical parking needs are for these types of users. And then the only other thing to really mention, at this point would be density. Based upon the preliminary lot size that we have, we're showing that they'd only be allowed 80 units when you look at the traditional density that's out there for the RM1 zoning, which is what they'd be basing the planned development on. So the unit count may drop from 82 to 80. And that's really kind of pending a more exact survey of getting exact lot size. But otherwise, the applicants are here. If there's anything you guys want to add, please feel free. Otherwise, if there's anything the planning commission wants to ask or talk about, this is their chance.
Yeah, we're looking for feedback.
Well, I guess one thing I'll say quick is they have already submitted for rezoning. They have a pretty tight due diligence time frame through the school district. So actually, I think it's next month, if my memory serves me correctly. You will be seeing this in a more formal version, but this will help them kind of tweak things between now and then. So any comments are helpful.
Well, a suggestion would be with the underground parking. People would have to come down Test Corners to Cornell Drive and up Durham Place to get there. If there's a way to continue that westerly road, and again, not for some, I don't know how you do it, but not having connected Durham Place to keep the county happy, it would take the traffic off those, of Cornell Drive and off Test Corners Drive. Because if you're going to have parking for...
There's no access over there, right?
Yeah, the access to the underground garage
is off of Durham.
Yeah, he's saying
I
if
see,
someone's on
he's saying-
Janesville and they want to park in there,
They'd have to go to the
they'll
Cornell.
go down, yeah,
Go out
down.
to Test Corners Drive.
They can go Cornell West to Penn Lane, which was a road that was connected for this exact purpose. Penn Lane was extended between Sandalwood Drive, I believe it is, to Cornell for the purpose of having connection there because of the cut-through issues and stuff. So that is one way they could go west. If they wanted to go east, they would go to Cornell Drive east to Test Corners. So they can go either direction, but you're right, they would have to go through one of those two neighborhoods.
Could I go through Bushies?
Legally, no.
Legally, no.
Legally, no.
Well, let's
We will
say-
never tell you you should.
And you will get stopped.
At times, Bushies has had gates up to prevent it. I think they've kind of gotten away from using those, but they did for a while.
Did you want to add something?
I did, yes, thank you. I'm Lisa Sullivan, I'm the developer for the project, and I've got Josh Lefko and Don Lazorick here as well. Don is the architect, and Josh is our civil engineer. And we had a neighborhood meeting at Bushy last week, and it was really great to be able to talk to the residents and hear some of their concerns, and we've been able to address those, which is great to get that feedback early on. We had no negative comments from the neighbors. Obviously not everybody was there, but for the ones that were there, it was a lot of positives, and they were happy to see that there was something going to go in that was quiet in their neighborhood, and with less traffic than what they're thinking there is right, there was with the schools. So with regard to where the parking is, I just wanted to make you aware that the average age of our residents is 85, and we have over 60 communities throughout Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa. And when we look at the driving history and the number of residents that move into our communities with vehicle, we have 1-to-1 it starts, but within 3 years, the driving has really curtailed. And while they still have their vehicle, because that's very difficult to give up, they're not using it anymore. And we do provide transportation for the site, and many of our residents take advantage of the bus. So that parking area up in the front is primarily for visitors and for staff, and as Adam said, for deliveries. And then it would just be the residents who are driving that would be using that underground. And we do have down there, I think your question, Aaron, was how many do we have? We have 87 total parking spaces down below, and we have 80 units for the independent living.
So just for clarification, this is under roof parking, not underground parking, correct?
This would be underground.
This is underground.
You're actually going below grade.
Correct.
Okay.
Because of the steep terrain change on the site, makes it much easier to do because it's like a 30-foot drop from like the north to the south side or something, so.
So is it exposed basement?
It's not exposed, right, it's still under, but
There will be a retaining wall where you drive into the garage. You can kind of see where it flares out and residents can get in, but it's not exposed.
Anything else that anybody wants to add?
I guess maybe I just ask a few questions. So you said 87 units. You said you have 225,000 square feet. You guys do a lot of these developments. I'm often designing competitor against.
Okay.
I do senior care as well. 22 years
great.
designing it. So can you touch a little bit on your unit sizes? You must have some pretty. Comparably to the competitors that are in our community now, you have some pretty high-end, nice units, right?
Well, we have our target is really a mid-market target. We have some that are very high-end, but then 20% of our mission to seniors, 20% of our units overall is all for a more lower income. So it just depends on what market that we're in. So we're not just a high-end builder.
There's a lot of the communities that, like Tulsa, I think Conowak, you've definitely been in those. Could you touch on I think Germantown,
Sure,
right?
sure. Actually, Dawn designed Germantown, and I developed it. And we had a lot of fun with that project. There was a lot of questions because that site, if you are familiar with Germantown, it's at the Blackstone Creek Golf Course, and it was really a construction dump site for years and years and years. And the village had very strict architectural guidelines. They wanted it to be Germanic in nature. And so it was, but it needed to be a fresh Germanic. So it was, I have to tip my hat to Dawn because it's really a beautiful building. In fact, I think the city planner, Scott, his parent, his father.
Paul Worshrecker.
His dad lives there and he goes, oh, you designed that Hogwarts. You guys are in that Hogwarts building. But they are beautiful. And we're very fortunate that we've been serving seniors for over 60 years and we're continuing to listen. And one of the things that's different about Crest Homes than many of the other senior living communities is that we have never sold a building. That we build them, we operate them, we own them, and we don't sell them. We see ourselves as community partners for life. And that's why it's important to get feedback and make sure that what we're building is something that hopefully most people can agree on.
Is your organization for-profit, not-for-profit?
We're not-for-profit, yeah.
Touch a little bit on your town center.
Oh, the town center is awesome. We intentionally design our buildings with the shortest corridors as we possibly can, and then we've got a common area town center. As people age, it's the community that's of value and importance to them. And you can live somewhere for 10 years, and oftentimes if someone's health changes, they've got to move. But in our communities, because we've got a narrower, shorter corridors, all of our amenities are in the same place, it's like your room changed, your apartment changes, but your core area is still the same. We've got fine dining, we have a bistro like a Panera, we have a movie theater, library, there's a community room where we have church services and entertainment. We've got a wellness center. There's a myriad, and it's not that we don't want the residents to be separate from Muskego or the cities that they live in, but it's difficult when you're no longer able to drive or you don't have access to those amenities or someone to take you. There's still a quality of life that the residents desire to maintain, and so we work hard to create a community that's strong and vibrant and alive.
I'm pretty supportive of the development, to be real honest. So I think it's a great solution for this property. And this property's sat vacant now for a year and a half, at least 2 years.
And we looked at it, almost 4 years.
How many times away from it?
Yeah.
I think it's very nice. I like the development.
Are there any, I don't know if you were able to share the site views with the building height?
I didn't, I kind of saved those rezoning just so we could talk about it more, but I mean, you know, like I said, as this goes forward for the formal rezoning, which will be a public hearing, the last council this month at common council for the rezoning, and then it will be coming in your hands, our meeting next month. And as part of that, we'll see a lot more detail on just kind of looking at how the height breaks down with the grade changes and how that relates to surrounding properties and average heights and stuff. So, you know, we'll have a lot more of that then, for sure.
And I think I can speak for everyone here that we thank you for having a neighborhood meeting. That's always helpful, so.
Well, we would like to be neighbors, so.
Good. So I don't think doesn't sound like there's anything to add.
Very well done.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Any miscellaneous business, Adam?
Nothing there.
I have a question.
Yes?
I mean, as much as I like this development, we have put a lot.
Your microphone's too far away.
We have put a lot of senior housing in Muskego, and I am just wondering what that is doing to our, not our police, because they can add as the numbers or the population goes up, but what about fire and EMTs?
And that's not, and I do want to say that's not a plan commission discussion, that would be city council.
That's fair. Well, I mean, it's.
It's fair to bring it up, but it's a city council.
But just for informational purposes, before we go into a market, we do extensive due diligence to make sure that there's a demand. We're not going to go in and build a multi-million-dollar.
No, I'm not saying that.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
I actually, I took a ride in the ambulance this summer.
Sure.
I feel like I waited too long, and if we keep building, then I will go to common council and ask.
Yep.
I feel like I waited too long.
Well, one of the
Be Public Works and
benefits.
Safety Committee first.
Yeah. But one of the benefits of a continuum of care like we have is that we have staff 24/7, and over 75% of the residents that move into our community come from a 10-mile radius, so they would already be living in Muskego. So if they had a fall, they would be calling the fire department, or they would be calling the police department, or a first responder. But in our communities, they press attendance, and then our staff will go and be that first responder for them. And we see ourselves as partners. We're able to we have RNs and LPNs on site who are the LPNs are able to assess. And so we actually have see that a community like ours, with the staffing that we have, is really less of a burden than having seniors living in their homes alone.
Thanks.
So where am I
Okay,
going?
well, I'll talk to you later. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.